Squeeze the loaf sitting on your counter right now. It springs back like a mattress. Roll one slice between your fingers and it collapses into a little gray ball of dough. And that bag has been open for 2 weeks, still soft as the day you bought it. That's not freshness. That's engineering. And here's the part nobody says out loud. You didn't buy the wrong bread. You bought what the shelf offered at a store you trust. That's the whole story of how this happened. So we tested it. Bread from 10 American stores. The store brand, the bakery loaf, the one you'd actually grab. And we lined every ingredient list up against European law. 7 of those 10 could not be sold as is in Europe. 3 could. And the store that finished dead last, the one whose loaf failed hardest, is the most trusted grocery chain in America. The one famous for its bakery smell. Before we start, drop the store you buy bread from in the comments right now. By the end, you'll know exactly where it landed. One rule carries this entire list. The front of the bag is a promise. The parenthesis on the back is a confession. And hiding in those parentheses are 4 words. Collect all 4, and you'll never need this video again. Let's start at number 7. For years, bread was the innocent aisle. Soda was the villain. Cereal was the villain. Bread was just bread. Flour, water, yeast, salt. The 4-ingredient recipe humans have baked for 6,000 years. Then, in September 2020, the Supreme Court of Ireland looked at a sandwich roll from Subway and ruled that it was not, legally, bread. The sugar in the dough came out to 10% of the weight of the flour. Irish law allows 2, 5 times over the line. So in the eyes of the court, it wasn't bread. It was closer to cake, and it got taxed like a pastry. A country's highest court had to invent a way to say it politely. Some of what we call bread stopped being bread a while ago. That ruling gave us our test. 2 gates. Gate 1. Does the ingredient list contain anything Europe doesn't allow in food? Gate 2. Does the recipe still fit the legal definition of bread, the one a real court has actually enforced? Now the honest part, because this is not a fear video. Nothing you're about to hear is poison. The FDA permits every single ingredient on every label in this list, and finding a chemical on a label is not the same as proving harm. Nobody's loaf is going to hurt you tonight. The question we're asking is narrower and honestly stranger. If you carried your loaf through customs in Europe and tried to sell it, would they let you? For 7 of these 10 stores, the answer is no. Number 7 is the one you probably guessed. Number 7, Dollar General. Nobody walks into a Dollar General expecting a miracle. You expect cheap, simple white bread. And honestly, that's a fair thing to want. Flour is cheap, bread should be cheap. But flip the Clover Valley bag over and find the parenthesis after the words dough conditioners. Read it slowly. Calcium peroxide, calcium iodate, datum, ethoxylated mono, and diglycerides. There's your first secret word, calcium peroxide. It's an oxidizer, a bleaching and strengthening agent that whips weak dough into shape fast. And it is simply not on Europe's approved list. A baker in France couldn't buy it for bread if he wanted to. Neither could the iodate next to it, or that long ethoxylated mouthful at the end. 3 ingredients in a single set of brackets, and each one alone would stop this bag at the border. One more detail, and it's the quiet one. The 3rd ingredient in this loaf, a head of salt, a head of yeast, is high fructose corn syrup in a plain white sandwich bread. The price tag on this loaf is honest. The parenthesis isn't. But keep this in mind as we climb. Dollar General never promised you Europe. The next store on the list sells more bread than anyone alive, and its parenthesis reads almost word for word the same. Number 6, Walmart. Great value white bread is the default loaf of the United States. If bread has a national average, this is it. On the current label, you'll meet 2 ingredients worth knowing. The first is your second secret word, datum. Say it like the bakers do, datem. It's an emulsifier, and I'll be straight with you. Europe allows datum. It's not the crime. It's the fingerprint. Datum exists for exactly one purpose: to make dough survive a machine that develops it in minutes instead of letting it ferment for hours. When you see that word, you're not reading an ingredient. You're reading the word speed. The second ingredient is the illegal one, potassium iodate, not authorized in European bread, full stop. And the round-top version of this same loaf adds calcium peroxide, the word you just learned at Dollar General. It gets deeper. The older Great Value recipe ran azotocarbonamide and ethoxylated conditioners. Hold on to that first word. It's coming back with a story. In 2014, a writer at Slate counted the ingredients in Walmart's wheat bread that Whole Foods bans outright. He found 7. And in 2015, about 50,000 packages of bread, Great Value among them, were recalled because a light bulb shattered over a production line and glass rode out in the loaves. That recall swept Sara Lee, Kroger. And one loaf that will show up on the winner's side of this video. Same recall, same factory. Remember that. It becomes the twist of this entire list. One recipe, 4,600 stores. That's not a bakery decision. That's national policy written in a parenthesis. Number 5 is the one that surprised us. Number 5, Target. Target almost walked out of this list. Market Pantry white bread has the cleanest ingredient panel of any cheap loaf we pulled. No peroxide, no iodate, nothing ethoxylated, no yoga mat, anything. Whoever specs this bread did half their homework, and it would be dishonest not to say so. So why is it still on the failing side? Because of Gate 2. Market Pantry runs on high fructose corn syrup, sitting high on the ingredient list. And before anyone writes the angry comment, no, Europe doesn't ban corn syrup either. What sinks this loaf isn't the type of sweetener, it's the dose. Ireland's definition of bread allows sugar up to 2% of the flour's weight. A standard American sweet loaf like this doesn't tiptoe past that line. It lands somewhere in cake territory. Check the sugar line on the bag in your own store. Grams per slice. It adds up fast. That's the strange verdict on Target. Nothing in this bread is forbidden in Europe. The recipe just stops being bread when it gets there. Target's loaf isn't dirty. It's dessert with a job title. And that sets up the brown loaf, because the next one sells itself as the healthy choice. A loaf that, as far as we can tell, has never met a whole grain. The color is doing all the work. Number 4, Sam's Club. Members mark wheat bread. The bag says wheat. The flour disagrees. First ingredient, straight off Sam's Club's own website, enriched wheat flour. That's white flour. The bran and germs stripped out, a few vitamins injected back in. Enriched is the industry's word for we removed it, then apologized. Third ingredient, high fructose corn syrup. And a little further down, the artist of the whole operation, molasses. Molasses in a loaf like this isn't really a flavor, it's a pigment. It turns white bread the color of your good intentions. Then, of course, the parenthesis, ethoxylated mono and diglycerides, not in Europe's book. This loaf fails both gates at once, the chemistry and the costume. If painting bread brown sounds like an accusation, it isn't mine. It's settled law. Bimbo Bakeries, the giant that bakes half the loaves in this video, settled a class action over exactly this. Orowet agreed to remove added color from its dark rye because the color made it look more whole grain than it was. Sara Lee had to walk back a whole grain claim. The Cheesecake Factory's famous brown bread got dragged into court for the same paint job. The industry knows the trick works. Courts keep making them stop, one loaf at a time. Brown is a pigment, not a promise. And with that, we're done with the cheap seats. From here up, every store is a name America actively trusts, starting with one that already got caught once. Number 3, Safeway. In 2014, the Environmental Working Group went through American grocery labels hunting for one specific chemical. We'll meet it properly at number 2 and publish the list of names. Safeway was on it. To their credit, that chemical is off the label now. What replaced it is the interesting part. Today's signature select white bread runs datum, the speed fingerprint you learned at Walmart, plus potassium iodate, which Europe doesn't allow. The enriched version stacks calcium peroxide and calcium iodate on top. The scandal ingredient left the building. The building didn't change. But here's what makes Safeway genuinely fascinating, and it's a fairness point, not a gotcha. On the very same shelf, Safeway sells a reformulated 22-ounce loaf with no datum and no corn syrup. Same store, same brand, same price range. Sit with that for a second. They already know how to bake the loaf that would pass. It exists. It has a barcode. The clean version isn't a secret recipe locked in a vault. It's a line item that has to fight for shelf space against its own cheaper sibling. The clean loaf isn't a discovery. It's a decision. What's left now are the 2 most trusted grocery names in the country. And the higher the trust climbs, the stranger the labels get. Number 2. Kroger. Kroger is the largest traditional supermarket company in America. More families carry home Kroger brand bread than almost any loaf in the country, which is exactly why your third secret word matters. Azotocarbonamide. Take it in 3 pieces. Azotocarbonamide. In the plastics industry, it's a blowing agent, the chemical that puts the foam in foamed vinyl and yoga mats. In American baking, it bleached flour and conditioned dough. Europe banned it in food. The FDA still allows it at 45 parts per million. In 2014, when the Environmental Working Group published that list, nearly 500 products containing azotocarbonamide, Kroger white bread and Kroger hamburger buns were on it by name. That was the year Subway got publicly embarrassed into dropping the same chemical from its rolls, while late-night hosts did yoga mat jokes for a month. So Kroger fixed it, right? Now the half that never made the news. Azotocarbonamide is gone from the label, but pull up Kroger Classic White on Kroger's own website today and read the conditioner list: calcium peroxide, datum, ethoxylated mono, and diglycerides. 2 of those 3 still stop this loaf at any European border. And yes, the 2015 glass recall ran through Kroger's bread too. Same production lines as Walmart's loaf, same family of ovens. The scandal ingredient got fired. The system that hired it got promoted, which leaves one store, the one with the bakery smell. Number 1. Publix. If you are from the South, you already feel this one. Publix is not a grocery store. It is a civic institution. The American Customer Satisfaction Index has had it at the top of the entire industry. Most trusted grocer in the country, tied for the number 1 satisfaction score of any supermarket. And the crown jewel is the bakery. That smell when you walk in, the warm white mountain bread in the paper-ended bag. Notice something about that bag, though. No nutrition panel. Fresh bread baked in-store does not legally require one. The FDA exempts it. The most beloved loaf in the South is also the loaf with no label. The smell is the label. That should have been the first clue that this test would get weird. So we pulled Publix's own published ingredient list for white mountain bread. Dough conditioners, datum, ascorbic acid, enzymes, lecithin. And this is the honest twist. It is the cleanest failing list in this video. Nothing in it is banned in Europe. No peroxide, no iodate. On gate 1, Publix walks. Gate 2 is where it falls. The published numbers: 1 gram of sugar in a 56-gram slice. Do the math against the flour in that slice, and you are past 3%. The Irish limit is 2. Add the soybean oil riding along, and this recipe, as printed, does not fit the only court-tested definition of bread in Europe. Even if the rounding is generous, it is sitting on the line. And sitting on the line is a strange place to find the word bread. But that is not why Publix is number 1. Publix runs a premium line called Greenwise, and on its own website, it publishes the list of ingredients Greenwise will never contain. On that list, azotocarbonamide, calcium peroxide, bleached flour, bromates. And, read it again slowly, datum and lecithin. 2 ingredients Publix's own premium standard refuses are in the bakery bread they hand you warm. That list also hands you your 4th secret word: potassium bromate, the heavyweight, classified a possible human carcinogen in 1999. Banned in Europe, the UK, Canada, China, India. The FDA has been asking American bakers to stop using it since 1991, asking for 35 years. And in 2023, California got tired of waiting and became the first state to ban it, starting 2027. Publix put bromate on its own forbidden list, which proves the point better than I ever could. They know the entire vocabulary. They wrote it down. Publix wrote the confession themselves. They just printed it on a different page. The most trusted store in America, selling a loaf with no label on the bag, that fails its own company's standard and Europe's definition of bread at the same time. Nowhere on this list does the rule land harder. The front, even when the front is a smell, is marketing. The fine print is where the truth lives. That's the 7. Look at the shape of it. At the bottom, the fails are crude. Peroxides and iodates at Dollar General, Walmart, Safeway, Kroger. In the middle, the fail is a costume. Sam's Club painting white flour brown. And at the top, at Target and Publix, the fail turns elegant. Nothing forbidden, Nothing scandalous, just recipes so sweet and so conditioned they quietly stop qualifying as bread. The cheaper the store, the cruder the shortcut. The more you trust the store, the more polite the shortcut becomes. Now pause the countdown, because none of this is an accident. And I want to be fair, none of it is really a conspiracy either. It's 3 decisions, stacked on top of each other, and the oldest one turns 65 this year. Go back to 1961. A research lab in Chorleywood, England, works out that if you slam dough with violent, high-speed mixing, you can skip fermentation almost entirely. Flour to sliced and bagged loaf in about 3.5 hours. Traditional bread needed a day, sourdough, longer. By 2011, 80% of British bread used the method, and versions of it now run production lines across the United States. But there's a tax. Dough that never fermented is weak, pale, and it tears in the machines. So the process brings friends, oxidizers to strengthen it. That's your peroxides, your iodates, once your bromate, and emulsifiers to fake the softness that time used to build. That's your datum. Every word and every parenthesis in this video exists to solve one problem. The dough wasn't given time. When you delete the time, you have to add the chemistry. Then America added its own ingredient, a loophole. In 1958, Congress created a category called gras, generally recognized as safe. Sensible idea, strange execution. A company can determine, by itself, that its new additive is safe, and start using it without telling the FDA. That's not an activist talking point. In 2010, the Government Accountability Office put it in writing. The FDA generally does not have information about those decisions because companies aren't required to share them. And the third decision is the one nobody chose on purpose: distance. A European loaf is often born in a corner bakery and eaten the same day. An American loaf rides a truck, waits in a warehouse, sits on a shelf, then spends 2 weeks on your counter. And it's engineered to feel fresh at every stop. The additives aren't villainy. They're logistics, written in chemistry. Europe looked at all this and chose precaution. Prove it's safe, then use it. America chose momentum. It's safe until it's embarrassing. Potassium bromate is the whole philosophy in one molecule. Europe said no decades ago. The FDA has been politely asking since 1991. Speed, self-certification, and distance. That's the heist. Nobody stole the bread. They stole the time and sold you what was left. One more thing before the winners. Ignore the mold test. You've seen the viral version. Leave a slice out for 2 weeks, and if it refuses to mold, the video declares it fake bread, full of banned chemicals. That test measures exactly one ingredient, calcium propionate, a mold inhibitor that is fully legal in Europe, plus your kitchen's humidity and how the bag was sealed. Every ingredient in this video that actually fails European law, the peroxides, the iodates, azotocarbonamide, is completely invisible to mold. The mold test reads the one ingredient Europe agrees with and misses every single one it bans. So who passed? 3 stores sell an everyday loaf that could, as a recipe, board a plane to Europe tomorrow. Whole Foods, yes, but stay with me, because the reason matters more than the name. Whole Foods publishes a banned ingredients list over 300 entries long: potassium bromate, azotocarbonamide, bleached flour, high fructose corn syrup, all of it, and runs the logic backwards from the FDA's. An ingredient is unacceptable until it's been reviewed and cleared. That's the European posture, operated by a grocery store. Part of that famous markup is you hiring a private regulator. Trader Joe's passes too, and quietly. It's private label promise. No artificial preservatives, no synthetic colors, no MC. Covers the bread aisle, and in 2026, it took the #1 customer satisfaction score in American groceries. Trust that survives the flip test is rare. This is what it looks like. But the winner is Aldi. And I need you to feel how strange that is. The cheapest bread on this entire list. A German discount chain where the carts cost $0.25. In 2015, Aldi stripped synthetic colors, partially hydrogenated oils, and added MSG out of its entire private label, 90% of the store. And it has now committed to eliminating 57 ingredients from its shelves by the end of 2027. And here's the punchline I promised you back at Walmart. That 2015 glass recall. The shattered light bulb? Aldi's Lovin' Fresh bread was in it. Same recall. Same bimbo bakery lines that produce great value. Read those two labels side by side and they nearly rhyme, except Aldi's version is the one without the banned oxidizers, because Aldi's spec sheet says no. Same factory, same machines. Different customer giving the orders. The winner isn't a better baker, it's a stricter customer. One honest caveat, so this video ages well. Aldi's white loaf is still industrial bread. It runs datum and calcium propionate, both legal in Europe. Legal in Europe is a floor, not a halo. If you want bread with 5 ingredients, that's the bakery counter or your own oven. What Aldi proves is that the floor costs nothing extra. That's the scandal hiding inside the good news. Now the part you can use tonight. 3 tests, 10 seconds each, right in the aisle. Test 1. The parenthesis test. Flip the bag. Find the words dough conditioners and read what's inside the brackets. Calcium peroxide, azotocarbonamide, potassium bromate, anything ending in iodate, anything starting with ethoxylated. One hit, and that loaf fails Europe on the spot. If you only see datum, the loaf is legal over there. But you now know you're holding speed bread, and you can decide how you feel about it. Test 2. The paint test. On any brown loaf, the first ingredient must start with the word whole. If it says enriched wheat flour and you spot molasses or caramel color further down, the color is a costume. Put it back the way you'd put back a mislabeled price tag. Test 3. The Irish test. Find the sugar line. 2 grams or more per slice, and by the only court-tested definition in Europe, you're not holding bread. You're holding something closer to cake. Fair warning on this one. Label rounding makes it a rough guide, not a verdict. Use it to compare loaves, not to convict them. None of these tests needs a lab. The lab was always the back of the bag. 4 myths before the checklist. Rapid fire. Myth 1. If it were dangerous, the FDA would have banned it. The FDA has been requesting, not requiring, that bakers drop potassium bromate since 1991, and under the GRA loophole, companies can greenlight their own additives without filing a word. California didn't wait. Its ban lands in 2027. Myth 2. European bread is chemical-free. No. Europe allows datum, calcium propionate, ascorbic acid. The difference isn't purity. It's the burden of proof. Europe asks first. America apologizes later. Myth 3. Expensive means clean. America's most trusted grocer just finished last, and the winner was the cheapest loaf in the lineup. Price measures marketing, not chemistry. Myth 4. Enriched flour is upgraded flour. Enriched means the bran and germ were stripped for shelf life and a few vitamins were injected back to cover the loss. The name isn't a boast, it's an apology with good branding. Let's put a dollar figure on all this. Call it $3.50 a loaf, 1 loaf a week. About $180 a year on bread. The flour, water, yeast, and salt in that loaf cost the factory pennies. What the rest of your money buys is the system we just walked through. Mixing speed measured in minutes, softness that survives a 2-week truck and shelf journey, a bracket full of chemistry standing in for a day of fermentation. You're not really paying for bread. You're paying for the bread's commute. And the fix costs nothing. The loaf that wins this whole video, at Aldi, is cheaper than the ones that failed. Reading one label once saves you $180 worth of bad bets a year. That's the best hourly rate you'll ever earn. So, the whole video in 5 seconds, standing in the aisle. Flip the bag. Find the parenthesis. Scan for the 4 words, and their iodate and ethoxylated cousins. On brown bread, demand whole as the first word. Glance at the sugar line. 2 grams a slice is your warning light. If a loaf clears all 5, it would clear customs in Europe. That's the entire skill. It fits on a thumb. You now hold all 4 words, so you can read the confession anywhere. Calcium peroxide, datum, azotocarbonamide, potassium bromate. 20 letters of chemistry that tell you, in half a second, whether your loaf was given time or given shortcuts. And the rule stands. One last time, the front of the bag is a promise. The parenthesis is a confession. So, did your store make the list? Did your loaf land where you expected? Or did number 1 sting a little? Tell me the store and the bread in the comments. I read every single one, and the labels you report decide which aisle we test next. And send this to the friend who swears by the bakery smell, not to ruin it for them. Just so they read the other page.